Hello, and welcome back to the Proving Culture sessions. The series was created to help those tasked with seeing and assessing workplace culture to better understand emerging concepts for continual improvement that are now being embraced widely in ISO certification standards, but also practical for any organization on their continual improvement journey. In the first session, we explored the idea of workplace culture to create an image for assessors to look for when identifying workplace culture. We define workplace culture as that invisible force of shared beliefs, norms, and behaviors that determine whether employees feel safe to speak up, take risks, and collaborate openly. We provided an overview of current and future ISO certification standards, expectations for workplace quality and/or safety culture back in session 2. In session 3, we examined current and future expectations for workplace culture and psychosocial safety for both quality and safety. Current standards call for demonstrating workplace culture. Future versions coming in 2026 and 2027 will expect maturity of what your organization is doing for workplace quality and safety culture. In sessions 4 and 5, we took deeper dives into ISO 10010, a guidance standard to help organizations mature their workplace quality culture. So in session 6, we shift from drawing a picture of workplace quality culture towards a picture of workplace safety culture with a deeper dive into the psychosocial safety in the workplace guidance standard ISO 45003 2022 that we introduced back in session 2 of this series. In this session, some of the conditions shown in session 2 will be examined further, deeper dive, as you may have it, across the 3 categories of psychological or psychosocial workplace safety: how work is organized, social factors, and workplace environment. Like the ISO 45001 standard and many other certification standards, 45003 is structured quite similarly. We will go through Clause 6 and Clause 8, planning and operational control, to gain an understanding of these concepts at work, so that that center part of the standard, 6, 8, are all part of how to get things done in any ISO standard. So let's go there in this session. I'll share some examples for each, but encourage any safety professional watching this series to get a copy of ISO 45003 and share it with your organization, please. Even better, pick up a copy of Dr. I. David Daniels' book, Psychosocial Hazards Are Real. Dr. Daniels puts forth real world examples in each of these 3 categories, and it's a really good read for you to understand, put these in real world context. Another great resource I recommend for understanding these risks is Managing Stress and Psychosocial Risks e-guide from the European Agency for Safety and Health at Work. Really good, easy to use guidebook. Take a look. Go to the website. Let's first look at clause 6.1.2.1, hazard identification, just like in ISO 45001, where the focus is to understand the underlying sources of harm before any controls are considered, to improve the means to manage psychosocial risks by establishing a process to implement and maintain processes that are ongoing and proactive. The reference standard provides 3 very in-depth tables that define examples of categories for risks and examples of how these risks are realized. In these 3 distinct categories: how work is organized, social factors in workplace environments. So while we will discuss a few examples, you're encouraged to explore the extensive listing of potential risks and opportunities in the guidance standard to consider in your workplace through your safety and quality management systems. So let's start by looking at how work is organized. Here we have listed uh, 3 of the categories in the standard. There are 8 categories in all of the work organization risks posted in the standard. Let's consider for a moment roles and expectations and the stresses that come from unclear direction of job or task responsibilities. I think we all know what that is. Think back to the first day on any job. What if every day was that way? How did anxiety affect your attentiveness or effectiveness? So, how work is organized, just think of that moment and you understand where we're going with this. Or job demands, where you're given too many hats to wear. How about all those people who filled in during COVID when others were able to work remotely as long as there was a set of eyes still in the shop? For those that were returning to work, did you take a chance to thank your eyes and ears on the floor for helping you do your job? So you get the concept here. How about machine pacing? I've audited many bottling plants and commercial bakeries. The pace is amazing and stunning at times. The secret of success has been the proper use of automation and pacing for those points of human intervention. Took a lot of human intervention to get to that point, but it creates a workplace culture of producing a lot of product in a high-paced environment. So let's take a look at social factors. The focus here is on personal relationships, leadership and management styles, workplace culture and communications, and career development opportunities, and as well as to support against violence, abuse, harassment, and bullying in the workplace, with the freedom from reprisal for raising such concerns. So, can you speak freely? That's what we're chasing at. That is workplace culture. So it all comes down to managing interpersonal relationships across the organization through identification and policy around many social influences, relationships, interpersonal conflicts, as I mentioned, harassment and bullying. You know, you're almost like a social media cop here, but the stakes are high in the modern day workplace. And unlike in the population at large, you can set standards within your organization to establish values that lead to a strong culture. The challenge is always to have your supervision on board in every aspect. Let's consider the work environment, the third category. So the focus here is on equipment and hazardous tasks, adequacy and suitability of physical settings, tools, machines, and materials. Let's also consider maintenance of equipment and work space conditions, including things like lighting, space, temperature, noise. For the most part, this is where traditional OSHA compliance programs and equipment standards, industry standards offer their framework for accident prevention, right? Of the 3 categories of risks and opportunities, this is likely where your house ought to be in order anyway. So some jobs are just subject to extreme conditions and need to be recognized and addressed. Mining, meat, poultry producers, offshore work, wind energy towers, electricity transmission, some extreme work environments, strong workplace safety management systems ought to have these particular extremes planned for and may have very different workplace standards than other organizations to accommodate for those extremes. So it's that one shoe doesn't fit all principle. What are we going to do about all of these sources of workplace psychosocial risk that we just walked through? What are the programs, processes, and tools that become part of a response to these hazards to reduce risks and as part of a workplace safety culture? For an auditor or analyst, what are the observable actions for risk assessment and control that may be assessed for effectiveness? Consider that ISO structure mentioned a moment ago will go to clause 8, operation, to gain an understanding of these concepts at work. In clause 8.1.1 of the guidance standard, it looks to identify best fits between tasks, structures, and work processes, and the needs of workers for any actions to address risks that we identified earlier. Again, for ISO auditors, this is where we're called to duty. Is the system working? Is the plan that came about from clauses 4, 5, and 6 of a management system, is it working? Where does the rubber meet the road? Risk assessments are needed to identify controls that may be adequate or need improvement to protect workforces from actual or potential harm from exposure to psychosocial hazards. So it's very important to get those risk assessments conducted. As with many other standards, it offers a hierarchy of controls. Interesting here, for this area of risk, the standard offers 3 tiers: primary, which are broad organizational controls to be maintained; secondary may take the form of resources to raise awareness to psychosocial hazards, raising the bar in the minds of the workforce; and finally, tertiary refers to the measures for rehabilitation of controls for effectiveness. So you really kind of see management system approach for 3 different ways in which controls need to be defined. In clause 8.1.2.2, psychosocial risk control measures related to work organization are offered. We'll take a look at, here's a couple of examples to understand what an organization may feel best pursuing and which auditors may tangibly assess for managing organizational risk. These things could include workers' control of work, breaks and work rotations, defining work roles, minimizing ambiguity in the work, competence and instruction that often leads to confidence in what people are doing, and the whole concept of remote or isolated work, where you might be doing a similar activity, but in that isolated or lone environment, the environment itself is very different. And what are some of the psychosocial implications for that? And how do we manage that unique part of a workforce to maintain an overall safety culture among employees? In clause 8.1.2.3 of the 45,003 guidance standard, psychosocial risk control measures related to social factors are offered. Let's consider a few examples to understand what an organization may feel best pursuing and which auditors may tangibly assess for managing organizational risk. These include increasing awareness of psychosocial risks and reporting capabilities, posting of policy and commitment to a supportive and respectful work environment, developing skills for de-escalating tensions, awareness for rights and responsibilities of workers, offering wellness and social responsibility programs to encourage the culture, and of course, anti-harassment and bullying processes and reporting. So these are some of the kind of controls that can go into place to help address social factors in the workplace. Change, managing change. Change in any aspect of work can be a great source of psychosocial hazard and risk. Likewise, change can drive improvement and success for workplace culture. An emerging field of assessing the management of change, or MOC, we like to call it, is to identify and consider changes to an organization's objectives, activities, and work processes. Clause 8.1.3 provided a list of factors to be considered as part of management of change that may have or receive impact from psychosocial factors. So these are extremely important. Any long-serving ISO management system auditor will tell you that ineffective means for managing any change in an organization will be observable in product quality and workplace safety performance. The challenge has always been to walk back through to a root cause analyses for what those psychosocial factors were. Physical harm or physical defects to people, parts, or processes have been the foundation of root cause analysis for decades. So let's take that a little further to the non-physical aspects to consider. Workplace locations and surroundings influences on social behavior. Work tasks, flows, and patterns, workplace conditions, equipment and resources, workforce and supervision, and of course, terms of employment are all factors that are influenced or can influence when things change. So managing change to promote a safety culture is very important. So knowing these psychosocial factors exist and may be contributing factors is going to open a lot of possibilities to eliminate harm and defect on the shop floor going forward. I think that the opportunities that come from organizations implementing Clause 8.1.3 from the standard, coupled with firm understanding of the controls we just discussed and firm understanding of those categories of hazards we discussed a few minutes ago to accomplish all of this improvement in workplace safety culture is a game changer. This becomes the business case for embracing psychosocial hazards in the workplace. It will take any organization to a culture that can truly peak and sustain in the highest levels of safety and quality beyond comparison in their business and in their marketplace. Proving this exists demonstrates the value is why ISO auditors, safety professionals, and any business analysts need to understand and put these measures into practice. Leadership, shareholders, and customers will see these measures for the game changers they are and will respond in kind with engagement, support, and profitability. So we hope that you have enjoyed this session of the Proving Culture series and have taken the opportunity to view sessions 1 through 5 as well. Stay tuned to the Proving Culture YouTube channel at Proving Culture for more sessions in the coming months. With coming changes to both ISO 9001 and 45001 standards, having greater expectations for workplace culture, we hope that this series will prepare everyone for this exciting performance driver now being recognized as such.